And we're off. All right, all of you freedom-loving boys and girls. Hey, you know what? We're just going to kick off. This is our episode 19, our decompression episode. That'll make a little bit more sense in a few seconds. I'm going to kick it off with a question to you, the people watching. Should I start doing the bring back the SOS Morse code noise? Do, 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 do. I don't want to do it myself, but we've changed the intro a little bit. But I just realized I didn't have the music set up again, the SOS noise. But here's our intros. We always do. Just let us know if we should bring back the SOS noise. But if you are watching this podcast, or if you're listening to it, we'll get to that in a second. If you're watching or listening to this podcast, seriously, you are the resistance. I'm going to do a little bit of ad lib. Redbeard doesn't know this. I'm older than he is. But I used to really, really look up to and I had lots of respect for like the classical liberals of my youth, right? I didn't have to agree with them, but I understood and I looked up them for being people of principle. Part of our decompression, as we get into it, is going to talk about where did all those people go? What the hell's going on? And so I really mean it. If you're watching this, you really are the resistance. We are the rabble rousers. We are the people who need to start organizing and let our voices be heard and protesting and stopping this madness before we all get, engulfed in, nuclear war. All right. So I'm one of your hosts, Mark, and I'm going to bring it over to a different view and we'll let our other host introduce himself.
Redbeard.
Yep. That's all you got to say by way of introduction.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, we've already kind of done an expounded introduction. Basically, I'm a history guy. I'm a gun guy. I like athletics. I like sports. I like fitness, anything to do with the outdoors. And I'm kind of a general constitution and history nerd, not only for our country, but I also really enjoy learning about countries of the world. And and just a disclaimer, or not even so much a disclaimer, but try learning a language. It's actually pretty fun. So, and it makes you look smart, even if you're not.
And un es muy importante en hoy en día. All right. Hey, and I'm your other host, Mark. I guess we should probably do this every now and then again, Jeremy. So maybe our decompressions, we just do a little intro. Yeah. And if you haven't figured out, Redbeard and I are just a bunch of knuckleheads. We put our pants on just like anyone else. I'm your other host. Full disclosure, I own and run Centerline Systems, where we make high quality handcrafted outdoor gear. Before that, I was in the CIA as an operations officer. And before that, I was in the military. And before that, and throughout all of that time, I love nature. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love camping, hiking. I can't do some of those anymore. Oh, I didn't even see it. Yeah, there he is. He's showing off.
Great gear. I'm
supposed to do those plugs for my gear, but that was awesome.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to throw myself under the bus. Like a lot of the things I love to do, I'm just not physically capable of doing. So but it's getting better. So you're
making a comeback.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to start the next chapter. And hey, you got all brand new, wings and, and limbs. Go out and do some cool stuff with them. So I'm happy about that. All right. So we are your hosts. We just gave you a little bit of our background. If you want to know more, go to the episode 1 and 2, where we probably spent way too much time talking about it. Yep. But here we are. We're just a bunch of guys. We're doing this because we want to do this. We want to have these conversations with people because people matter in our opinions. And we want to be able to have adult conversations, rational conversations. Hey, I might be wrong. You might be right. And you might prove me wrong, or vice versa. But none of us as human beings are ever going to learn if we just stay in our little echo chamber. So we're not necessarily even talking about edgy subjects, but in this episode tonight, it's a long-winded way to get all the way to discussing tonight's topic. So this is only the second time we've done it now, because this is episode 19. But every, a decade's worth of episodes, we're going to do the last one of those episodes as a decompression. You might call it a mix-up or a mash-up or a review. For us, it's a little decompression. Decompression. It gives us a chance to talk to both ourselves, be honest with ourselves. Me and Jeremy get to talk about the subjects we've talked about, because our ultimate goal here is like, were we right? Were we wrong? Or did nothing change? And there's not enough evidence to go on. And we're not trying to be soothsayers. We're not trying to have a crystal ball. But the whole point is here is to have very, very open, adult conversations about serious topics, because all of the new generation of rabble rousers, we need to get this shit right, or we're going to be in big trouble. And that's going to come out here a little bit tonight. Redbeard, you want to add to that before I do housekeeping?
Yeah, no, I think that's, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're just, for those of you who are joining us near the conclusion of our second decade, that's basically it. It just kind of comes down to, we're here just to kind of provide some insight, provide some of our opinions. Hopefully we can do it in the most factual way possible. And, and I think one thing that Mark kind of left out that I think we're starting to get better on too, is we are attempting to also provide more links and resources to stuff that we talk about, because let's be honest, right? Like, there are people that are infinitely more plugged in and better at extrapolation or expounding upon certain things than we are. We just kind of bring this stuff to the forefront and do the best that we can. So that's one thing I want to say that, I think we have done better on. We are going to do better at doing that. And, we just hope that you all enjoy what we do. And we're just happy to have you. So.
Damn right. And, and that was another great point. So none of this is scripted. I mean, we do a pregame and an after action review, but the pregame is just to make sure we know what the hell we're talking about. We're not scripting anything. Redbeard just brought up a great point that I really like, because we've also done 2 episodes of our first kind of live stream training courses, where it's not just me or Redbeard or a guest speaker regurgitating something on a PowerPoint slide. Well, you could read that for yourself. It's taking that subject matter, expounding upon it, bringing in other resident experts, but then also bringing in you, the viewer, the listener, with the live chat, and trying to bring people on. Hey, that's a really cool point. Do you want to, do you want your face to be right here with us? And you're making that statement to everybody else, because we're all in it to learn from each other. And I think that's something that we started off with really strong, and we're continuing to move in a very positive direction. So, not to pat ourselves in the back, Jeremy, but I think we are getting better at that stuff.
I'll give you a high five anyways.
All right, I'm high-fiving you. Smack, high five. Yep. All right, here we go. So we're going to jump into the episode, but before we do, we have 2 brief little bits of housekeeping to do.
Some big stuff.
So I just said one of them, which is, hey, we did these training courses. When we do these, it's live over on Centerline Systems, and that's not. It's just because when we first started doing this, we didn't have Mission Critical Podcast set up to do live stream through YouTube. That takes a little bit of a period. But this software that we use right now, that's actually through Centerline Systems. So and we can live stream on this. So that's what we've been doing. But we have been doing some training courses. So we're uploading that stuff right now. I just uploaded part 1. I'll upload part 2 on Sunday. Today's the 27th.
Yep.
So I think so on the 30th, I'll upload part 2. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, if my math is all screwed up, the 2nd of August at 1900 Central Time, that'll be part 3, the final portion of the training course. And on that note, huge shout out to Paul for helping us out with that and being a participant, and a huge shout out to all of the guests that we've had in the last 10 episodes. We've had some, I'm not going to brag here, but some really solid people. And just like what Jeremy was kind of saying, we're just here to be kind of a vehicle. There's people who interpret things differently and have a completely different perspective. And oftentimes it's a way clearer or better perspective than ours. So we've been pretty lucky to have some great Americans, great human beings, take the time out of their busy lives to spend, an hour to 2 hours, on the podcast. So that's the other housekeeping. Just want to give a shout out. And then also to let you, the viewer, know, we're going to continue moving on in that direction. We've already got a bunch of guests, scheduled for the next 10 episodes. So we're just striving to get better and try to give you a bunch of comments. So that's our content. So that's the second part of part 1 of housekeeping. Part 2 is, I alluded to it, we are now finally on Spotify. No thanks to Jeremy, but it was all me. And what that really means is I'm giving myself shit, because I actually was able to, once I sat down and tried to figure it out, I was able to figure it out in 5 minutes. And I'm like, Redbeard, we've been talking about this for weeks, and you'd be like, dude, Mark, what is your problem? I'm like, I'm just not sure how to do it. Yeah, I wasn't seeing how to do it. And then I just went and did I'm like, da 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 da. I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. So we already have episode 1 from Mission Critical Podcast is up on Spotify. And now over the next couple days, the weekend, I'm gonna, because I have to upload every one of them. It takes a little bit of time, but I'm gonna start uploading everything and get us hopefully caught up within a week.
Yep.
So if you're watching this episode and you're an over-the-road driver or you've just got time to listen to podcasts, we are now on Spotify. Redbeard, remind me, I got to put a link in there, or we have to figure that out.
We got a couple links we'll be dropping in on this episode too.
Okay. So we'll throw the Spotify one in there. And then last but not least, a very, and somebody might say selfish, I'm not plugging Centerline Systems. I'm plugging us as humans. But over on Centerline Systems, we just finished we did 4 charity auctions. Myself, my business, and other businesses, that I know reached out to them, worked with them, and we put together these charity auctions. And in total, Jeremy, I think I was wrong. So here's the total. We raised $3,627 over 4 charity auctions. So thanks to everybody watching, listening. If you were over on part of the charity auctions, thank you for making that stuff such a huge success.
Way to go, guys.
Yep, that's pretty damn cool. We did 23rd Veteran. Here's the charities that we used. 23rd, because I want to give them a shout out too. 23rd Veteran, Folds of Honor, Disabled American Veterans, DAV, and then the last one was militaryoutreachusa.org. So I'll have little links in for all the charities here at the bottom because, hey, maybe you didn't know about the charity auction, but those are some great charities for veterans, and maybe you want to go and donate. So I'll have that embedded in here as well. Jeremy, I just talked for a long time. But that's housekeeping, sir. What do you got? You want to add anything to that?
No, I think you did a great job summing that up. And I'm ready when you are to head into the decompressing phase.
All right, here we go. We're just going to launch into decompression. If you're watching, you see what I'm doing. If you're listening, I'm asking you to raise your glass. Yep, there you go. Have a little adult beverage or whatever it is that you're imbibing.
Yep. I just want to say that if you expire from dehydration and you had all the means to stay hydrated, it's a less than optimal intelligence right there. So
well, I like how you did caveat it. If you have the ability, yes, you should be drinking.
Because it would have been too general. So
all right, here we go. Jumping into decompression. So this is only the second time we've done this, again, mashup, decompression, a review of, okay, what did we just talk about over the almost last 2 months? Actually, it is about 2 months. And one of our goals here of doing an episode just focused on the previous episodes is because, I can't speak for anybody but me, but it's because I'm serious about these issues and I'm concerned about them. I'm pretty damn sure, Redbeard, you feel the same way.
Yeah.
And so what we kind of are, at least our intent right now, is to review this to see, hey, did Mark and Redbeard have it right? Did they have it wrong? Or has nothing really changed or there's been no additional factors that would have altered the outcome, because otherwise, what's the point? We're sitting here trying to learn ourselves and help and learn from you. So that's the whole point of the decompression. Let's see where we were. So here's where we're going to start. So of all the episodes we have, and I don't think I'm going to read out all the titles. You can go and look at it. But, here, I'll just do it for this first 4. So we had 4 episodes that focused on social issues, social unrest, social concern, however you want to phrase that. We had an episode titled, here's what they were titled: How Long Do We Let This Continue? A Question of Character, Lions and Tigers and Bears, oh my, and then What Does It Mean to Be a Man? And sometimes if you've been listening and joining us, our titles can be a little, maybe I'm just not good at doing titles, but I don't mean to say that they're deceptive. I'm not trying to be deceptive. Lions and Tigers and Bears, that made sense to me because it's kind of like, shit, what's going on out there? Lions and Tigers and Bears. But we had all of these issues ranging from, the censorship and political persecution and what's really going on, I think we were kind of bringing that up because that Bud Light thing was kicking up, like, what does it mean to be a man? Like, and everybody was talking about what does it mean to be a woman? Well, what does it mean to be a man? Why can't we have, and I don't care what your opinion is. You are your own individual. You're going to come up with your own perspective and your own and maybe your own definitions. And I'll get back to that in a second. But so my perspective might be different from yours, but if we as people, if we don't have shared definitions, well, then how can we communicate? How can we even begin to understand the questions, let alone come up with the solutions to the issues at hand, right? So we spent 4 episodes. I mean, that's probably almost 6 hours, Redbeard, talking about a lot of social issues that were going on in America. And as we get into the decompression part, I'm going to let Jeremy go in. What do you think? How did we do, or what do you want to add to it to further prove our point? Because we weren't wrong, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think as it pertains to social issues, I mean, there's quite a few things that I think are a little out of the cuckoo's nest, if you ask me. I also want to make mention too that I think probably for almost about 30 seconds, I completely lost you. And it went all black screens for both me and you. So, but
okay, I had you the whole time.
Okay, yeah, I was like, oh man, I
lost. If somebody experiences 30 seconds of darkness, don't worry, you didn't just suffer a stroke. You're okay, because here we are again.
Yeah, it wasn't the Clintons, okay? So, no, yeah, I think as we look at, a lot of the social issues and stuff like that, I mean, it's everything from, I think, from a morality component, just some of the things that have been changing. There was somebody who had mentioned in a podcast that I was listening to shortly ago, to where they said, what you're really starting to see is you're starting to see almost a comeback of traditionalism, and where you're starting to see segments of the population that want to have more of that traditional purview, whether it's marriage, whether it's a traditional home, whether it's a traditional thing. And I think that's a great thing, especially as it pertains to all of the very morally ambiguous actions that people are taking. Mark, you've mentioned several times about the idea of, these operations as they involve children, as it pertains to sex changes and some of the immoral trash that they put into schools as it pertains to the books that are there. People can dispute that one all they want, but look, the books are all over the place. Like, if you don't look at those books and get sick to your stomach, I don't know what your frame of thought is, but I am happy to see that a traditional component is coming back.
So, we talked about exactly that, like, when is enough enough? Have you had enough? All of us, have we reached our pain threshold yet? And Redbeard, great points, because it's surprising to me that if an individual, a random person went out and did X, Y, and Z, you'd be in jail. But somehow, if it gets a different title or if it's under a different group, it's now something that we're okay with. And so there, for every action, there's a reaction. I mean this very seriously. That's why we are the resistance. To your point, Redbeard, if more and more people are starting to waking up to this, I think more and more people are starting to realize your voice does matter. You got to go out and exercise your voice, and you got to put a foot down and start standing for, decency, common good, freedom, whatever labels you want to give it.
Right. And I'm kind of multitasking, but just to prep for one of the next segments.
Let's bring that up. I think that happened like 3 times in the first 10 episodes. Jeremy was like trying to eat a steak while we were doing this. So yeah.
Hey, to be fair, I think the worst time was probably when we did the what does it mean to be a man? And it was me, you, and it was Dave, right?
Yeah, and Mish.
Yep. Yeah, and I remember, or no, it was the first one we did with Dave. Without Mish, that I was running home and I was like, I gotta grab something to eat real quick, and I'm sitting there trying to eat Dairy Queen as fast as I can. But I digress. Not a moral or a societal dilemma. It's just a dude trying to be a dude, right? So but no, I do think that there is this movement now, especially I think you're starting to see younger to like your 30s, mid 30s people or individuals that are gravitating a little bit more back towards that traditional side. And it does make me happy in a way, because what that means is hopefully with that structure, with that gravitation, we're going to start seeing more homes and households that are going to have a more grounded approach to raising a family. We're going to have a more grounded approach specifically in raising a family towards involvement with your kids and being more involved as parents. Hopefully, we're going to start seeing families actually be families again, and not being perpetually glued to their phones 24/7. I know one of the biggest societal shifts that I saw just within the last decade is you'd see families go out for dinner, and all of them are looking at their phones. It's like, so what's the point? You're spending money just to spend money at that point, especially in an economy that's been less than optimal. You could have done the same thing at home for a fraction of the price. So I am happy that we're seeing this shift. Now, another thing domestically that I think we're running into is we are seeing a lot more arbitrary, usurious and usurping forms of legislation and policy, things that are wildly unbecoming of a government that would be presumed to be constitutional, or a nation that would presume itself to be constitutional, which I don't think that we're acting in that manner. But with that being said, I do believe that this is happening because slowly but surely, I think we're starting to see a shift in who's gaining the initiative. And I think it's because people are starting to wake up slowly and surely. We're having more of that traditional aspect. People are realizing that having, arms to defend themselves and property rights is important. These are all facets that people are starting to realize. And I say, let's keep on the gas, and let's keep pushing this, because we are at a point to where it's pivotal. And I think we have a good advantage here.
We are the resistance. I mean, if we're going to turn the ship back into a heading, or, whatever analogy you want to use, then people do need to start doing these things. And I agree with you. So I don't like saying I'm black pill. Didn't we try to come up, or maybe that was Jack at Black Scout, trying to come up a different way of saying black pill? Because I'm not necessarily black pilled. I think we're going to get our asses kicked. We've been getting our asses kicked, but I think we will eventually win. Now, if enough people wake up. So, again, we had 4 episodes talking about societal issues. Some of them had to do with politicians. So I think, to your point, Redbeard, we're seeing a lot more people starting to be like, time out, no bullshit. It isn't capitalism. It isn't a constitutional republic. It's the freaking people we keep electing into office. So I even think we're starting to see more and more people wake up and call bullshit on just the graft and corruption and the outright. So, and I hope I'm right here. I don't know if I am, but I hope I'm right. I started off talking about, those classical liberals that I respected as a kid. I do think more and more Democrats, are classical liberals. And I'm not saying I'm a Democrat or Republican. So don't judge me. I'm my own person, right? I don't think I fall in either camp. But I do think you're starting to see more of those people like, okay, this is too far. This is enough. You're like, you're kicking me out, or you won't let me read this book in the school board meeting. You won't let me read this book in, in a congressional hearing, but you're telling me it's okay for 4-year-olds. Yeah. More people. So to your point, I think, Jeremy, a lot of people are just kind of waking up and calling bullshit. So I think we were kind of pretty spot on with some of the things that we said and the subjects that we brought up in those 4 episodes. And again, I don't know. I don't want to turn this into we were right 93% of the time. That's not what I'm trying to do. I think all I'm trying to say is I think that resonates with people. And that's probably why, we're obviously already in trouble with YouTube, so thank God for Spotify. Let's see if, we reach more people there, but
yeah. And I think to kind of add to what you're saying too, I think you are seeing a shift. I mean, a great example. And as you're talking about, the classical liberals and stuff like that, I will be one to say that, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks to some degree, but I don't believe a person like Kennedy is inherently a terrible human being. I think he's misdirected in some ways, but I also think that there are certain things that he hits home on that are very valid. Like, look, in the end of the day, like there's people that you may absolutely despise, but if they make a valid point, a valid point is a valid point.
Well, hey, before you go too much further, just two things. He has every right to make a point. Like he's an American.
100%.
Yeah, he has a constitutional right to be able to, like, you know, a freedom of expression. So it was so interesting to me to watch Wasserman Schultz try to censor him on the committee or the hearing about censorship. I'm like, my God,
it made it really awkward.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because, and then I'll shut up and let you continue, because I think that points out two things. I mean, people aren't dumb. We can see that shit, and more people are waking up to, like, before we may have willingly kind of said, okay, whatever, you know, now it's like, no, it's pretty obvious what you're doing. But the scary thing about that from the social issue side is that those people, and, you know, again, if some are Republicans, some are Democrats. I mean, you know, it's both sides of the aisle, but those people are being seen and called out for what they really are, which is, you know, you can call it deep state, you know, the swamp, whatever you want to call it. All right, so, go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry, I just had to throw them because before you got too far away from that.
Yeah, well, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it up with the political situation, at least as I've seen it. Mark, I don't know if you saw this, but something that also developed too is you had both Democrats and Republicans that were, and I would say conspiring. In my opinion, it's absolute conspiring to assimilate as much control and power as possible by literally saying that third parties should not even be allowed to put forth a candidate or be viable. Now, look, I'm not a party person, but if a third party wants to run, if a third party wants to put forth a person, would it not? I mean, is that not the beauty of this country? I mean, if you have the Barbie party, for God's sakes, I mean, I might absolutely detest what they're about, but look, like you said, Mark, why are we trying to censor? Why are we trying to keep them out of the conversation? The only reason I can think of that both the Democrats and Republicans came together on this issue is because there's not only money incentives, not only power incentives, but it's because the third parties have a lot to say that they don't want anybody to hear, which is, hey, both these parties are absolutely terrible. We're proposing some different ideas that they probably don't like. So this is what we have to offer. And look, it's the two-party system, in my opinion, two-party system has got to go away. It is one of the most egregious, grotesque monstrosities that we've ever seen, in my opinion. And I think
then we should hang on. You give me a thought, because we're going to end up doing a giveaway somewhere in the next, 1 or 2 episodes. You should maybe start thinking of a question that has something to do with the party system.
I do have something.
Because I like it. Because I almost just started chiming in. I'm like, oh, hang on, we're going down the rabbit hole. Let's just slow it down. I think I know where you're going with that whole thing. Let's do that as a question, because we'll do a giveaway either the next episode.
I got a softy one for him. So
okay, all right. But you're absolutely right. The uniparty, more and more people are waking up to the realization that it really is a uniparty, and we've got something has to change. The 270, electoral votes, I'm totally on board with that. Still, I don't think that needs to change. I don't care if it was 50 party. Because I mean that. I'm sorry,
it's like that meme that says
do 50 parties, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like the meme that says it has the two pictures from, it's a office meme, and they're like, show me the difference, and she's like, there is no difference. Like, that's 100% what it is. Like, there is no difference between these two pictures.
The only difference is one is in blue and one is in red. That's it. All right, so
and I was just gonna say, look, you're more than welcome to make the decisions and vote for who you want. I'm not here to tell you how to do that. I just personally think that from a historic standpoint and from a standpoint pertaining to liberty, having a two-party system, much less two parties that have shown their ineptitude as being the only parties we have to choose from, is a suboptimal situation for this country. So.
Hell, I mean, I'm going to throw this out there because I know you're going to jump on it for at least a sentence or two. We need to be rethinking the whole age thing. And so back into these societal issues, one of the titles was, how long do we let this go on? To What level of pain do you have to reach before you, the individual, start speaking out? And I'm here to tell you, it's painful watching half of the shit that's going on in Congress right now, you know, and to include from, and I am not picking on him because he's you know, a quote unquote, you know, like, you know, he's the I'm trying to think of Lord of the Rings, the steward. He's the steward, you know, he's the steward of Gondor. He's not the real king of Gondor. He's the steward. So, and somebody might say, well, that's bullshit. He was duly, whatever. You do you. But what I don't think any rational human being can really run away from is like, that guy is mentally not fit to be there. So so we've got to take a step back and say, why are we electing? How did he even get elected? Why are we electing people like that? You know, Mitch McConnell had a brain fart, you know, the other day. Like, well, because he's old and shit. I don't wish him ill. He may have actually had a stroke. I'm not even joking. That's not cool. But if that's what if that happens in a crucial moment, you know, or
like war? Weird.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and to your point, like, all I'm going to say is, like, look, I think at some point, right, like, there's got to be, and even then, like, it's such a rocky statement to make, because I'm very conflicted in the statement, but at what point do we not at least examine the cognitive performance of these individuals, and not only that, but, like, why do we not have, like, some type of examination to, like, hey, like, where, like, what is your, you know, what are your views as they pertain to the Constitution? Like, I think personally we should make it a little bit harder to just run for office in as far as viability. You know, it's like, I feel like any guy can throw their hat in the ring as long as you belong to the right party. And it's like, no, like, if Mark has an employee and it's Joe Schmo, and Mark's like, hey, you actually have some pretty good ideas, like, maybe you should do this. Why would we not want to say, hey, let's take a look at what this little guy has to offer, instead of this dusty 95-year-old skeleton, you know, that's barely there. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but at the end of the day, like,
no, but you just made me remember another one. I mean, you know, and again, this is not meant to be political. We're not picking on somebody, but like Feinstein, like, oh my God, dude, it's just so sad. Like, you know, and that guy from Pennsylvania, like, come on.
I don't like seeing people.
So again, going into the question of who we are morally, have we become so debased that we're not even willing to say, like, come on, seriously, dude, this guy's like, they're in bad mental state, or they're in a bad
I feel bad for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because I feel like, to a certain degree, like,
they're being used. They're being used as
I was just gonna say, usury is what it is. It's usury to perpetuate whatever agenda that's there. And, you know, you don't have to like somebody politically. As a matter of fact, I personally, I'm diametrically opposite of a person like Feinstein. I do think that she has done absolutely great and terrible things, right? Like, many terrible things, and advocated for many terrible things. That being said, though, are we that far gone as a people to where we're going to forego our humanity and compassion to a certain degree when you see people that very obviously are suffering cognitively, health, you know, physically, health wise, or whatever? Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, look, if somebody thought the same thing about your parents, and they're just like, nah, you know, and pardon my American, but like, nah, fuck this person, you know, it's like, how would that, you know, these are still human beings, albeit I don't think they're the most upstanding human beings, but nonetheless, why would I forego my humanity? So, but
that was good. I actually was saying something. My mic was still muted, so I was actually, because you said something about, you know, who they are, and I was going to say they might be lizard people. So.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, look, I mean, that's a rabbit hole.
It would have been a funny joke if I would have got it in when you were saying the stuff.
Yeah. So, but I think that's another conversation that we can expound upon further down the road, which is a self-examination and internal examination as it pertains to our humanity and how we even evaluate our enemies. Because, you know, in the end of the day, look, like, if we can't if we're not willing to learn what the motivations are for those of whom we would presume to be our enemies, we don't understand what makes them live, what makes them exist, what makes them want to keep going, what are their convictions, what are their principles. Like, if we're not examining those of whom we oppose or we perceive as being enemies, then what are we doing? Like, in my opinion, we've already lost. So it's you have to be able to examine what motivates you, what moves you forward, and you have to be able to examine that of your enemies, or those you oppose. I would say that they've already kind of done their homework on us because we make it too easy.
Well, okay, you're jumping ahead a little bit, but I definitely agree with you. It's that whole ethnocentric, type of viewpoint. Look, you could take, and here, this is the segue. Let's now move into, some of the other topics that we talked about. Let's talk about, we discussed Russia, Russia and America vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine, China, America vis-a-vis China, Taiwan. And to Jeremy's point, I mean, these are some of the things that we brought up, and I can support Jeremy's arguments from two different perspectives. That is of the war fighter, like, no, I'm in it to win it, and if I'm going to be at war with these people, I need to know as much about them as I possibly can, so I can better understand them, because that understanding is going to help me better, better realize and implement a strategy to defeat them. Or to Jeremy's other point, and Jeremy and I have these kind of conversations offline all the time. It goes into our humanity. Like, I don't care what I did in the past, dude. I don't know. I've never been that guy who wanted to go out and do that stuff. I never really wanted to go, and that's not who I am. So, that kind of goes into the social thing that we just talked about too, Jeremy.
Right.
I mean, like, now we've got people running naked down streets, shooting at cars. I mean, for the love of Pete, but so I think your conversation about better understanding people also then lets you better understand and explore who you are and your sets of morals and principles and faith and what is important to you. But so that's my thing. So why don't you take where you were going and bring that into, like, so we talked about Russia versus America vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine. So I don't know if that helps you flow right into that path, but I know you've got some serious comments about that.
Yeah, so there's something I'm actually going to lead off of that one with, which is, I think we've become too comfortable with dehumanizing people, and I think it's very easy for us to do because we're in the United States. We're not over wherever some conflict is happening, or we're not evaluating these people with a realm of consideration, right? Like there's several people over in Ukraine and Russia and stuff like that. I mean, look, these are countries that are very interwoven with each other. They have a history with each other. These are people that are, and some might disagree with me, but look, Slavic culture is Slavic culture. We're never going to understand that. So they also have a deeper found understanding of one another as it pertains to the human being. And it kind of baffles me that if you look at, like, even GWAT and our involvement in the global war on terrorism, I mean, my God, and we've talked about this before, Mark, but how far down the dehumanization of people do we have to go to where we might not be making the Bucktooth Charlie comics, but we're doing other things to dehumanize these people and making it acceptable to just say, oh, well, they were this person, and because they lived in this area and they adhered to this religion, or they did this or they did that, it's perfectly okay to bomb the shit out of these people. Like, that to me it's not something I think is overwhelmingly natural. It's something that's taught, and it's taught in order to provide a basis for doing a lot of terrible shit that honestly is what we would otherwise hang people for if we had any real sense about our moral boundaries.
So just two real quick comments. I mean, we became desensitized and we really dehumanized it. When you really go back, this isn't even current. This is, we're going all the way back to the Obama and the Bush eras, with drone strikes. we brought this up not in this decade, but in the last decade of episodes. I brought up the Alawahi. Like he was an American citizen. There was no due process. Was he a bad guy? Yeah.
Yeah,
but he's an American. There should be due process. But we've desensitized. It's just so much. Yeah, it's a drone strike. It's a Hellfire missile. We just killed, we got our target and we killed, the rest of his family, but we got our target. So, but on the other hand, though, I get it. There are different ways that you have to evaluate different problems. So again, this kind of feeds right into it. These 2 episodes that we ran, it ran into 2 episodes, and we spent a majority of the time talking about Carver, which has to do with like how you go about selecting targets, and doing this in a way in which you can do it more mathematically and leave some of the emotion out. And maybe that's the problem, Jeremy, is like, hey, did we really just need to do that? Was there not another way to bring that person to justice? But on the other hand, our adversaries are doing that. I mean, so this kind of feeds into what's happened in the last 2 months. Dude, I mean, unless you're watching mainstream media, China and Russia are really pushing the propaganda on their side. So Jeremy just made a joke about how we've become so desensitized and our culture is degrading. Well, our enemies are feeding on that, and they're using that to plug into their own war machine. So, how do we defeat that? I'm a big Teddy Roosevelt, walk quietly, carry a big stick. What do you think, Redbeard?
Yeah, no, I think that as it pertains to these types of these types of things, it's, and I hate to kind of go back on it, but again, I think it's this idea that it's easy. I think it's much easier to dehumanize an individual, and it's much easier to take away emotion than it is to feel anything. Like, and it's weird because I think in the realm of feeling something for your opponent or whatever the case is, like you have to admit certain things to yourself that I hate to say it, is kind of incentivized to make you look bad. I mean, my God, if you look at how people react when you say like, hey, like for instance, like, hey, I've met a Russian before, like they're a super nice person. Like, oh, you must be Russian, like a Russian bot or Russian propagandist or whatever. It's like, why? Because I met a guy from Russia or a gal from Russia who was a very nice, down to earth person. Like, what makes them inherently evil? You can't even come up with a reason for why you hate somebody unless it comes from a tabloid of a mainstream media organization, or unless, of course, it comes from whether it's Fox or CNN or whoever. And furthermore, like, yeah, they're going to capitalize on the fact that there's so much hate here, because then they're going to be like, look, these people hate you. They want to destroy everything that you're about. And at that point, let me just ask one question. Mark, do you think that this is by some degree self-induced? Like, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by breeding a culture of fucking hatred for no reason whatsoever? We're it's oh, you're muted again, Mark. Yep.
Sorry. Okay, that's my bad, everybody. I had myself muted. I got a little bit of a weird cough, runny nose thing, so I had myself muted. But Jeremy, I was saying, as you were talking, like I really do need to make that tinfoil hat, because going into your question, I mean, like some people are going to say it's tinfoil hat conspiracy, because I would say I think there are elements within our society that have intentionally been working to cause this dissension. Now, whether they're what did the Hillary Clinton say? Whether they're agents of Russia or they're just agents of evil, I don't know, right? But it is evil, because you mentioned you met somebody from Russia and you thought they were a nice person. You had a great conversation. I've met people from Russia that I thought were just total douchebags.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I've met many Americans. It's the same thing.
Douchebag.
Yeah, exactly. It's just human beings are human beings. I've met people in Middle Eastern countries that you're like, holy shit, this guy's squared away. He really gets it. And then you're like, this person, how they treat children and women is like just deplorable to me. So yeah, I mean, some of it might have a little to do with culture. Some of it really, I think, unfortunately, most of it really has to do with humanity and our ability to actually really be humans and view people through that humanistic lens.
Yeah.
But on that note, though, again, walk softly, carry a big stick.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think to your point, we kind of got a little bit off track because this is really more back into the social issues, but we did talk about this in the episodes. We really should be reevaluating, what we're doing. Why are we even concerned about Ukraine? I mean, I think I could make a solid argument. We touched on it. We danced around it in some of the previous podcasts. Our involvement in Ukraine is all about, CYA. Somebody's covering their ass. I really do. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Redbeard.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think I think that's long since been the case, at least as it pertains to the United States. And I don't even, and this might be mildly controversial, but I'm not even going to call them our allies, because entanglements are not like it's just not good for liberty. We've been involved with too many people that have a tendency to drag us into a lot of their other problems, or have us do shit for them that we should not be involved in. And so I think it becomes a very messy situation. That being said, yeah, I feel like I just feel like there's no reason other than trying to cover something up, or to gain some sort of benefit by the blood of other people, for us to be over there. I mean,
but those benefits, though, those aren't morally sound. Like, this would be my only like, if somebody's wondering, like, well, what do they mean? I'm just saying, we're not doing this like going and fighting the Nazis. You're effing right. That's exactly what we needed to do, right? Fighting Imperial Japan. Yeah, that's what we needed to do. Spending all of how many billions of dollars, on a personal note, I'm a small business owner. I keep looking at the dollar amounts that we keep, we keep, just throwing away it towards a cause that has nothing to do with us. That, again, if you, to Jeremy's point, if you took a step back and were a human being, you might be like, actually, we kind of started this, and there's legitimate historical reasons, because there's these historical connections, interconnectivity between these two, Russia, Ukraine, these Slavic peoples. And it didn't require any of our involvement. So for me, I keep, tinfoil hat. It's a rope-a-dope. Something else has to be going on here. As a human, I'm like, people are being slaughtered needlessly. Money, again, call it what you want. Treasure is being squandered that we as Americans all really need right now. As a small business, hey, how about helping some American small businesses out? I mean, I don't even know. I have lost track of how much money we've spent in Ukraine right now. What is it?
It's 60, like it's easily $100 billion at this point. I think is what the estimates are. $100 billion.
Let that sink in for a second. $100 billion. You know how much financial relief that could be for businesses in America, small businesses, and our economy thrives on that, and we need that to help us. So that goes into tinfoil hat. Or did they let the economy be destroyed with the quote unquote the Rona?
Yep.
Well,
look,
I'm sorry. I just want to bring that back in, and then the last thing about humanities, like again, we're fighting. We're just getting involved into what's turning already turning into another forever war, and now we're supposed to be the beacon on the hill, and now we're talking about sending in munitions that everybody else condemns, and we would condemn. Now we're going to do cluster munitions. Like, where in the F is this going? What the hell's going on here?
Well, and so I just want to state that, like, there's no amount of what the government would put out there via media that's ever going to make me hate the entirety of Russia or anybody for that matter, because I think for myself. I can make deductions for myself. I'm capable of rationale and reasoning and being able to discern good people from bad people, and to overwhelmingly just say that, whether it's Middle Easterners or Russians or whoever, I mean, that all of these people are terrible. I mean, my God, I mean, did we learn nothing from the camps that we threw Japanese people in? Did we not learn from anything like that? I mean, again, we are developing into to an antithetical version of who we are supposed to be as a country. And to me, it's fairly disgusting. I think that, and I'm going to just say this last bit, and then we'll move on to some updates as it pertains to Ukraine and Russia. But I think that I think many people's propensity to want to drive to war so much is alarming. And I am very much on the side of those who wish to abstain from war, who wish to stay not intertwined in intermingled problems and being involved at everything in the world stage. Look, here's my solution. If the government at all was simply worried about national security, here's what I would propose is then at that point provide an initiative, call it the Common Defense Initiative, and let every willing and able red-blooded American assume the proper arms and the proper armaments and the proper supplies that they need in their homes, and have it to where it's a community-based endeavor. You get these people together, you train them so they're competent in being able to support their communities, whereby whether it's by defense or being able to provide food or whatever skills it is. That is how you harden your defenses here at home. Not having your military gallivanting all over. We need to bring them home too. But we need to incentivize a common defense amongst our people. We need to embolden our people to wanting to participate. And how about this? I know that don't get me wrong, I'm a taxationist theft guy, but how about we start down the road also and saying, hey, for every household that participates in this program, we will nullify over half of your taxes for the rest of your life as long as your family wishes to participate in a common defense program. Look, you're promoting probably the best form of national defense that you can possibly do. And who's going to want to come into a country where people are capable? I mean, we have been inept and asleep at the wheel for far too long. And I'm going to leave it at that.
You, my good man, are a jerk, an asshole. Like, you really just opened up that can of worms, and now we're going to walk away from it and get back on track to talking about unconventional warfare in China and Russia. Like, way to go, jerk. I was like, what the hell, man? So, okay, honestly, hey, seriously. So if people have been watching or following, we actually did talk about this tangentially. We talked about this in a different episode. And this had to do with, like, whether or not, not to relitigate it, but, like, should a civilian have this type of capability or this type of material, and that whole kind of controversy and Dakota Myers and all that kind of stuff. But let's not relitigate that. But I would just say this, Jeremy, not because now you just dangle that out there in front of me and anyone else who's watching this. I think that needs to go into somewhere in the next 5 podcasts. We revisit that subject, because at the end of the day, and because why couldn't we, or why wouldn't we do this? I mean, the only things that are immediately coming to my head is because it's not going to make a bunch of, like, politicians and defense contractors even richer than they already are. So
the war pigs don't profit.
Yeah, right on.
And in my opinion, fuck them all. Like, but I don't think that's too brash. Like, I don't want to participate in your wars. I want to have a home where we can securely defend it. We're not blowing like, you want to talk about saving money, having a
don't go down this road. Slow down. You're I think you're biting on this. You're biting on your own hook, dude.
I got to
biting on your own hook.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, because look, we're at 50 some minutes right now, and I know you want to say a few things, because you haven't even said anything about Russia and Ukraine.
And it'll be brief.
Well, however, but why don't you go in and do that? Because then I think that'll be a nice segue into China, Taiwan, unconventional warfare, and then we can wrap it up with UFO.
So there's just a couple points that popped up lately, and like I said in the very beginning, I actually passed on a link to Mark for you guys to go and take a look at this guy. He does a fantastic coverage on his YouTube channel. It's his channel is called History Legends. The guy outshines me by a thousand miles. That being said, though, he
Does
does
he have a beard?
He does to some degree.
Well,
Yeah.
then maybe I'm gonna.
It's
Yeah, but if you would have said he outshines me, but he didn't have a beard, then I would have called bullshit on that.
yeah. So he but I do watch him from time to time, and so there are a couple developments. The Russians did shell an area literally within meters of the Romanian border in one of the border towns in Ukraine. And they did so without destroying anything in Romania, which I think is, to me, is fairly telling about some of their capabilities. Look, they obviously can direct their munitions. They obviously have a competency as it pertains to their capabilities. So I think that's one of those things to where it's like, hey, look, like we got up to your border and we dropped it exactly where we wanted to drop it. So there's that. Outside of that,
well, but hang on one real quick second. But by in so doing, that further aggravates the situation. You know, like, yeah, okay, you didn't drop a shell. I mean, like, there's already been, and the reason I'm saying it, because there's already been the potential. Some of it has been false flags. Some of it is just, you know, it's the fog of war. But there already has been some things that have happened near or inside of, you know, neighboring countries, and that's where things can escalate out of control really quickly.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if I remember correctly, it was a storage depot that they had hit. I don't remember if it was a single site or if it was several sites, but they acquired the targets there, and they dropped munitions on them. One other development that again I would encourage you to check out the channel History Legends, because he does a fantastic overview of it. But the Russians have launched a counteroffensive to Ukraine's offensive, albeit they did it to the north, to north of Zaporizhia, and they basically are doing this offensive with about 100,000 people, and they've gained a pretty significant amount of territory in a very short amount of time. The reason for this is because it wasn't as readily defended, because they moved their assets, which I don't know about you, Mark, but that's what I would have done. Hit a weak point, break through. From my understanding, they broke through the first line of defense within a matter of, like, a couple days, I think. They made it through the first line of defense. They're nearing the second line of defense for Ukraine, and they're slated to start taking back ground towards some key points that they had initially withdrawn from. So that's something to watch. It is a developing situation, and supposedly Ukraine or the U.S. are saying that they're now just starting their full offensive. So I guess we'll see what that makes of. But you lost a ton of stuff on the onset of your little prodding. So,
well, I think for me, the only comment that I have, or the only thing I would want to add to that is, you know, again, when we've talked about in this previous episodes, our point has been, there's been this, you know, huge propaganda. Again, if we're going to use the term disinformation everywhere else in our society, then we have to use it here. We've been lied to numerous times. And a recent report that just came out where a bunch of senior, you know, US, you know, Western NATO officials said, oh yeah, we didn't actually think they were going to be able to do anything with their counteroffensive because they don't have the proper training, the proper resources. But we were hopeful that they would be successful based on their sheer will and grit, or some bullshit, things like that. I don't remember ever at any point in my life where sheer will and grit, you know, stopped a 7.62 bot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't.
It's admirable at best, but you know.
Yeah, well, you know, like, but landmines are 155 millimeters. It usually doesn't have a lot to do. It's good. It's a great attitude. But you know, you still actually have to have the skills and the capabilities and the material support to do it. So, hey, we're at. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's basically all I have for the updates. Like I said, we'll be dropping a link so you guys can go check out a better, fuller coverage of, I think, within the last week. Alex over at History Legends does a fantastic job. So highly recommend it if you're interested in what's going on over there, because he does a very even keel approach, and he does a very good job of providing information. So that's all I have.
Just a quick question: is this going to be a YouTube type of link, or is this a Spotify podcast?
It's going to be a YouTube one. Yep.
Okay.
So he has maps that he'll actually be able to show you movements and stuff like that.
Okay.
So.
Good. All right. No, that's pretty cool. Because I was going to say if that was just a verbal, in my brain, I was like, "Ooh, I think I would want to see some graphics with that." So
he does a really good job with that. So highly recommend.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, so kind of along the same note, then, but Jeremy, going into that, it's like because there's actual fighting going on, people are still kind of talking about Russia and Ukraine. You sent me that picture though, where they had that big meeting and Zelensky just looked like just a wet, beaten dog.
Yeah, that's still stagnating there for a while. I just heard somebody else talk about it.
Well, so that indicates that, hey, the love might not be as strong as it used to be, or people are kind of getting a little tired. Although there's so many people in the EU. Just a final note, on this, that who are still. So boys and girls, I think the final point on the Russia-Ukraine is like, why are we continuing to advocate? Why are we pushing, cluster munitions? Why are we, like, do a counteroffensive? We don't think you guys could do it, but go ahead and do it. And, shit, a ton of you will die, but you'll die gloriously, cannons to the right of me, cannons to the left of me, that kind of stuff. So why are we still like, why is this propaganda? Because it's clearly propaganda. We are not being told the truth. We are being told a story, not the story. I think that, I don't know if that's Bongino's thing.
Well, and everybody has propaganda. I just want to reiterate that point too. Like there's not one country that hasn't used it.
Yeah. Like Russia's used it countless times. I mean, look, no, to your point. So here, maybe one of the last little updates, so now some of the Western material, equipment is making into the lines. I mean, Russia and, I always screw up his name, the guy from Belarus.
Lukashenko?
Lukashenko. Yeah, I was going to say Timoshenko. No, Lukashenko. They just came out and they just did a presser and they're like, hey, yeah, we destroyed, like 15 Bradleys and 10, not Martyrs, but Leopard, whatever the Germans, I can't remember if the Germans gave them Leopard 2s or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was Leopard 2s.
Yeah, but still like a pretty advanced, main battle tank, Bradleys, and I'm sure. So anyway, but they use that for propaganda, just like we do, So, and then I hate to, I hate to say this because I feel sorry for the poor souls who died inside those vehicles, or maybe survived and are just, severely injured. But did they? I don't know. Were they given this stuff and then without any training, anything, sent off to be cannon fodder? And again, cannons to the left of me, cannons to the right of me, or was it a fair fight and they actually really did have the training and, and it's just a matter of like, well, that's how combat goes. Sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you. I don't know, but that is something I think to wrap up that little section that I really personally think everybody should be taking a step back and asking themselves, like, you're like, oh no, we can F those guys up. Why? Because you don't think they're humans and they don't have mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters or wives and kids or that's ridiculous.
Well, and to that point, Mark, and we talked about this, and I have to bring it up because it does factor into this. And as far as the social thing, I will say, look, the behavior of people as it pertains to the bombing of that bridge, and what happened with the parents and the little girl. The little girl survived, I think, at least as far as I know. But look, I mean, you're kind of a depraved as fuck immoral human being when you have individuals that wanted a picture of the girl sitting through the windshield of this car and praising the fact that this little girl is going to have a better life with both her parents dead. Like this, if that's your line of thought, I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that I hope that
I hope that never happens to you.
Yeah. I just like,
I don't know where you're going to go, but I'm just going to, I'm in control of the screens. So I'm going to take control. Nah, dude, if that's how you think, if you're that depraved, all I can say to you is I hope it never happens to you. And I mean that very seriously.
And as a Christian, I'll pray for you
that level of
because, yeah, I pray for your soul, because to me, like that's just, and I mean that very sincerely. Because we have a huge, that is a huge issue that we have as a society. Like, there's the idea of war, or even anybody being killed in war is disgusting. It's abhorrent, which is why so many people who've been there, more often than not, say like, yeah, no, fuck that shit. Like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that shit. You know, and then you have some that do. So.
Well, and, you know, and of course, the people who really feel that have never actually seen it, experienced it, will never see it, experience. And I mean that, and I hope that is the case. But for many of them, again, you know, think of our political leaders. They're never going to go fight the battles, you know, the wars that they're starting and they're picking and that they're promulgating. It's never going to be them or their children. It's going to be the me and yous. And I'm here to tell you, it wasn't cool. It's not cool. I didn't think it was cool. You know, that whole, I'm a cool guy. Yeah, dude, that stuff is cool. It is like a drug, you know, getting that training and having that skill. And and that's what your life revolves around, is constantly training and doing this stuff. I'm not going to lie. It's really cool, but it isn't cool when, you know, well, not to get into it, but I mean, there's things that I wasn't even involved in, but I've seen videos on, and those things still give me PTSD, you know, like, because that could have been me. That thing was so close to something else. I'm like, that could have easily been me, you know, and that's just disgusting, and it's horrible. And I guess, you know, if somebody thinks that makes me a pussy, then I guess I'm a pussy. So, you know, but hey, so then on that note, though, let's kind of take that segue into then what's been happening with China and what's been going on in America. Are these things connected? Is China getting ready to go to war with us because of, all the way back to the beginning of this podcast, like almost an hour ago, when Jeremy was talking about, you know, how we're perceived and the weakness and our, you know, both mentally and physically. Well, I don't know, if you've got an enemy who says, I know I'm going to have to go to war with this guy. I don't want to. Let's just even give them credit. Let's say, I don't want to go to war, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So then fast forward to where we are right now in history and look at how our leaders project themselves, how they are perceived by foreign dignitaries, foreign leaders, and then by our actions, which is kind of where Jeremy and I just went into a little bit of an emotional, philosophical conversation. But the things that we're doing, well, that leads itself to, propaganda. Hey, look what America's doing. Well, America's the bad guy. I can get all my people riled up to think that America wants to kill you. Blah, 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 blah. And if you're working against an adversary that actually takes it serious, like if I was, Jeremy, to your point, like, we should always avoid this. I'm going to kind of screw this up, but there's a couple different ways, people look at warfare, historical or philosophical, type of figures. But, some of some of the best minds, and when you really look at it, it's the last thing that you should do. But if you do it, you go in 100% and you make it quick. Right. You exhaust all the other means until we've exhausted all of our other means. But now that's it. And now I go in with 100% ferocity and I end it quickly. And then I step back and we don't do it again. So I don't know. So if our adversaries are thinking anywhere along those same lines, in my humble opinion, I think when we start talking about China versus America vis-a-vis Taiwan, I think we're starting to see some of that stuff really happening right now. I think we're seeing a country that is, well, it's one of two things. They're either very seriously preparing for war, or they are posturing, like really seriously posturing but if that's the case, it's because then they believe this government, our government, us Americans, the West, our people, however you want to phrase that, they view us as incredibly, corrupt, morally corrupt, physically corrupt, emotionally corrupt,
intellectually corrupt.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? I think that if that's the case, then that's how we're being perceived right now.
Yeah. No, and I'm just going to fall back on the same thing that I said just not long ago. Like, look, what is the perception? And I know it sounds ironic coming from a place like China, perhaps, but what is the perception of a country that disarms its own citizens as opposed to incentivizing a common defense? To me, it's the same perception to where a person who wishes to do ill in our country goes to a place that's considered a soft target. You're softening the target for our enemies and making us far more vulnerable by saying like, oh, we need to take these weapons of war off the street. Look, in the end of the day, it's those weapons of war that helped us win the day in our independence. It's those weapons of war. People say that guns are interwoven in who we are as a people. You're fucking right, it is. Like, arms have always been a part of who we are as a people. It's kept us from being invaded as a people and as a country, because we have that. So you're looking at our enemies, especially as it pertains to China. To me, it doesn't send a very good message when you're trying to basically destroy one of the fundamental things that have kept people away for a long time. And I get that people, will go out and say like, oh, well, they'd never invade mainland, whatever. That may be the case. Yeah, you might absolutely 100% be right. I won't argue that point. But the point is it's also the reason they won't invade mainland United States, right? Like that's the thing is your people will say that without actually understanding the foundation of why that's a conversation. I mean,
real quickly, just on that point. Yeah, there's probably no one in the world who actually wants to invade the United States because, because of the difficulty of what that would entail. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if you wanted to defeat the United States, you would start finding other ways to do it. Well, I mean, I think that goes to your point. Well, how about I just get them to hate themselves, hate each other, not have family, disarm themselves. And then, because I don't care what the outcome is, as long as the outcome is something different than a strong America, then I don't care. Then I still win, right? Winning is winning, no matter if it's pretty, ugly, or however you paint it. If you're the victor, guess what? You're the victor, and it doesn't matter how you got there. And I think we have adversaries who are smart enough to realize, like, I don't care. Let them disarm themselves. Let them, turn into a police state. Let them, do this. And then when I do something, they'll either be powerless to prevent, or I'll be, or the things they try to do, they'll work against themselves internally, domestically, or what I also think is going on to another degree, or to some degree, another factor of this thought process is, if you just keep looking at everything that's going on in America, and some of the things I'm talking about are physical attacks, but Jeremy is just bringing up another form of unconventional warfare, the psychological and the propaganda side of
sheer
the
deterrence.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're kind of seeing in my humble opinion.
No, you're accurate. Like it literally is one of those things to where it's just like, look, like they are going to weaponize this idea of like, oh, look, like there are people that forego their values and their traditions and this and that. Like they're not only weak physically, but they're weak mentally. They're weak in the realm of will. They're weak in the realm of capability. They'll sacrifice everything just for something to be easy. Like what does that say about us as Americans? I mean, usually in some way, shape, or form or another, there's usually some realm of truth to that. My God, we have allowed our military to become a shell of its former self. We have allowed, these ridiculous agendas to be at the forefront of dictating, policy and legislation and all of these things, and we've foregone our values. We've given up our traditions. We have done all of that. So
I don't know if you can see me. I just want to add, not only is it a shell of the military, but then look at our law enforcement. Our law enforcement has been militarized. So it's already being created into, and if you're a law enforcement officer out there, if you're one of the good ones, God bless you. That's a tough effing job. But just look at how much, hey, let them burn the city. Nothing, dude, the person who told you to stand back and let the looters burn the city is committing a crime. By standing back, you're supposed to be. So everything's being turned on its head, and law enforcement doesn't look like law enforcement. It looks like, paramilitary operate, or direct action, like straight up military. So, and what was that you and I just saw the other day? I can't remember if you shared it with me or I shared it with you. And if I can find this, I'll put it
the ATF thing where they're trying to kick the door that swung out.
No, well, there's that. Yeah, there's that part too. Yeah. Well, and then the
Let's
guy,
not get carried away about being
and then the
color
guy
in
at the range, who's, you know, he's violating every range safety rule. No, it was how all of these government agencies, things like NOAA, the National, you know,
Oh yeah.
Oceanic, you know, like the Department of Energy,
Why does
all of these
National
things that have
Geographic need
nothing.
an ammo
Yeah.
dump?
Yeah, they have nothing to do with like actual federal, state or local or federal law enforcement.
I'll be right
And
back.
they've got, you know, we just got, you know, 10,000 machine guns and 9 million rounds of, you know, it's like, what does that mean? That's absolutely ridiculous. But that is the direction that we're going. So, you know, kind of, I guess, and I apologize to everybody who is watching this. If you're seeing this, you know, Jeremy just walked away. I don't know if I said something offensive, but I'm staring up at the camera half the time. I actually can't see him down here. So, but along this line, boys and girls, I think what we're trying to say is, like, you know, certain aspects of our society, to include the family unit, right, are being weakened. Our military is being weakened. It's being turned into, you know, I hate to say it, like a laughing stock. You know, heck, my former, you know, alma mater, the agency, you know, like in some of their recruiting videos, like I thought we were here to get people who knew all these, you know, had language skills, international experience, all these different traits that we're looking for, that we could send into harm's way to, you know, potentially obtain information, intelligence that could help save American lives or, you know, defend the homeland. No, now it's all about, no, I'm just more interested in diversity hires. Like, okay, I don't give a shit what your skin color is or your sexual orientation or your religious affiliation. If you can get the job done, that's what matters. None of those other things, those aren't qualifiers. You know, you know, that's just ridiculous. But yet we see more and more, I don't know why. We're seeing a lot more of these. Again, this is kind of almost bringing it all the way back full circle to the beginning, but we're seeing a lot more of these auditor type of videos or channels becoming more and more popular as more and more people, again, kind of going back to something Redbeard said, are waking up and taking to the streets and starting to be the rabble rousers that, you know, we used to think the hippies were in the 60s and 70s, but that's us right now, and recording people and holding people accountable. So I think on one note, that's at least a positive sea change, if it's not too late. And I hope it's not too late. I really do. I hope, I don't care if it's 6 months from now, a year from now, 6 years from now, if we look back at this and I get to throw myself under the bus and say, oh, I had that totally wrong, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But if I'm even remotely right, that ain't cool. And I think that's kind of my final thing on this, Jeremy, before I turn it back over to you and we go into the last subject, is there is clearly something taking place inside of America right now, inside of the West, you know, whether that's Europe, whether that's the UK, Australia, New Zealand, you know, whatever we consider the West, you know, or the allied powers, if you want to go down those roads. And in America, you know, we're so messed up. We have naked women running down the street shooting at cars. What in the F is going on? You know, we're destroying we're destroying the very fabric that holds the flag together. I mean, so, you know, what did they say? You know, united we stand, divided we fall. So if I was your enemy, and this is bringing it back to my ultimate point, these are the things I would be doing. And I think you could look at a lot of both on the non-direct action, you know, the non-kinetic, the propaganda, the, you know, manipulating the media, manipulating the masses, and then even the kinetic. Because since we did this podcast, you know, or the last one we did on unconventional warfare, which, you know, not apologize, we did kind of go down the road and talk about this thing called Carver, but I think we all realized, like, okay, we just stumbled into, we need to sit and we talked about Carver for like an episode and a half. And it's very important. You really highly recommend people go back and watch those episodes. But the thing I never got a chance to say is, from my background and my humble perspective, I look at the things that have been going on, you know, globally, but I'm a little ethnocentric. So I'm kind of looking at, you know, the United States, and it just keeps raising my eyebrows. And since we did that podcast, there's been more train derailments. There's been more industrial accidents. So it really, what can it be? It's either the world's greatest coincidence, or all of our infrastructure sucks monkey balls and it should have been fixed years ago, which goes into then why were we spending money elsewhere? How do we not know this? I really have a hard time believing that, engineers don't know how to we constructed this bridge, but it's only going to last until 1970. Like these are known things, right? Just for obvious legal and, and legal reasons. It's either that or this is exactly what's taking place. And somebody is prepping the battlefield for what they think is or might happen in the near future. Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think you summed it up actually really well, Mark. I don't know that I even have anything to add to that because of how you came in and swooped it up and packaged it nice with a bow. So I'm going to kind of leave it there because I don't want to ruin a good point.
Okay. Well, I got scared and I probably went on a weird diatribe because I didn't see you leave and all of a sudden you weren't there anymore. And I was like, what happened? Where'd you go? All right.
It was not, again, it wasn't the Clintons.
He didn't get killeried. All right. Well, that's always good. Hey, all right. So our last kind of decompression, and let's kind of take this out on a fun note. Because a lot of everything we've said has been a lot of doom and gloom. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong view here. But let's kind of rehash the whole UFO conversation because you couldn't have planned this any better because now there's actually hearings going on. Yeah. So, Jeremy, UFOs. Is this a rope-a-dope or is this real or is this I'm not really sure.
Well, my personal opinion, I think that there's life out there. I think that there is not only life out there, but I think there's sentient life that's capable of technological advances. I think they're capable of doing things that we're not yet able to do, but I think we're on our way because we've had the whether it's a misfortune or a great fortune to possibly have some of their technology that we've been working on for a while now. As to what that extent is.
Before you go any further, again, in these hearings that just took place, there's a guy who's making exactly the claim, or he's claiming exactly what you just stated right there. So
it's and if I remember correctly, somebody asked him, did you have sentient life? And he's like, in a very roundabout way, he was like, it may have been sentient, basically, like, yes, that there would be indicators, yes. And she's like, well, was it human or non-human? And he specifically said non-human. Like I've said, I don't know how many times to you, Mark, I believe that even if it is a lie, that there's going to be some shred of truth there somewhere. And my curiosity's piqued, right? Like if that I firmly believe, even if they're bullshitting us, they found something. There is something there. And even if it's not to that extent, it's obviously there enough for them to want to obscure it for decades up until now. So,
well, my only comment on that, because I would parrot everything you said. I think it's just obvious, mathematically speaking. Of course, there has to be other intelligent life out there. Do they have the ability to travel between the stars? I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know. I mean,
I have no idea.
Yeah, humanity's only been around for I can't remember what our analogy was. It was something about 10 miles of toilet paper and we're just one little corner. Well, I can't remember what we said, but it was kind of
we're infants.
Yeah. So we just haven't been around. So where we are technologically is meaningless. I mean, if something else, if the conditions were better on a different planet somewhere else in the vast cosmos, all the different galaxies, I mean, come on, man, mathematically, well, they would be maybe millions of years more advanced than us.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't even potentially comprehend what interstellar travel looks like because we're still at, combustion engines, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the hell do we know?
Well,
but I do think it's of interest that, Chuck Schumer is involved in this. I'm just going to throw that out there because you couldn't trust that guy. I would never trust him with anything. I would not trust him with the life of one of my enemies that was my most hated enemy. I wouldn't let Chuck Schumer be anywhere near that person.
As that chick on the plane said, that motherfucker is not real. Hey, maybe she needs to be in on the hearings. Maybe she knows something we don't know. Like,
so just a little inside baseball. So Paul, who has joined us for a couple episodes now and was helping us with the class, go bags gear and getting there, he had made a comment and he had taken that statement that, motherfucker is not real and put it into an acronym. And I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, and I kind of was like, hey, Paul, before I respond, what does that even mean? And then were we doing our pregame when he said that to us, or what was it? Because then we all realized immediately.
Yeah, because he had brought it up and it didn't click with me right away. And I'm just like, oh, the airplane lady.
Yeah. So that just was kind of all, I hate to say it, so not necessarily UFO, but something weird is going on in our world. I mean, and then now there's another little video about like, again, people just tapping out, just mentally, like, like analysis, and then they reboot.
Yeah.
And then there's the video of that just demonic looking person behind the speaker, obviously one of her staff members, and her eyes are just crazy. You know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. I watched something on that to where somebody was like, there wasn't even a delay. So there's something going on between the two. It's
it wasn't that just freaking bizarre. So whether that's goddamn aliens possessing us, or
weird,
dude, but there's obviously something going on. But I still,
her eyes though freaked me the fuck out. Like, I don't even care if she was telling her to say something. It was the facial expressions and it's like, dude, you are either twacked out on like Hunter Biden's meth stash, or
what if she was one of Hunter Biden's, like on his credit card bills, and and she just did a little bit too much crack with him or something. There was something so bizarre that was so weird.
Yeah, no, it I'm not gonna lie, it skeeved me out a little bit. It was weird.
Well, okay, so on a serious note, now whether that's, again, we're talking UFOs, aliens, but again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe call it demonic possession. Maybe that's what we call it. But if we better understood it, we would realize that no, there is some kind of mind control thing. And I don't even want to bring up lizard people and all that kind of stuff, but something is going on. And whenever I see, kind of bringing this full circle into the last 9 podcasts. But whenever I see the government talking about something or the government bringing it up, I'm really scratching my head and, my eyebrows are going up and I'm like, okay, hang on a second. The same people who've been telling us for the last 30 years that anyone who claims to have seen something or whatever is crazy and ruining their lives and ruining their businesses. And in some cases, according to other people, actually killing people, killing, whistleblowers and or inventors or, whatever.
Oh, you mean like the chef for Obama on the paddleboard that just happened to die?
I don't know what that means. I mean, look, people do die. People die every day. That could have been innocuous, but it does just kind of raise your eyebrows. Like, okay, did he witness something? But I'm just kind of going back into like, again, all these people who've talked about, they've either invented clean energy or, or they talk about some alien thing and, and then they either just get slandered and their lives are ruined or, or they mysteriously die, I mean, actually, I just saw a stupid little thing. And I think we put those links in that episode, but one of the episodes actually talks about, an individual who was coming forward, was mysteriously struck by a vehicle, like a week before he was supposed to testify. Yeah. So what's that?
Seems to be a lot of stuff like that going around lately.
Yep. But I'm just bringing it up to go into and kind of wrapping up the whole UFO thing. I'm just a little hesitant. I don't put any faith that we're going to get disclosure or anything even remotely to it. And no offense, and I mean this very seriously. I'm not trying to slander anybody who's in that, who's testifying and who's on that, who's part of that committee. But yeah, you might be true. But see, look, if I was a clever man, I would hold this, and because your testimony is true, but because it's me, Chuck Schumer, and all these other people doing it, it's going to discredit you by default. So I don't know. I'm really hesitant. I'm really cautious. I think there's something nefarious, a little bit of a rope-a-dope going on, and I know there's other people that say, no, it's all the setup, again, go look at The Watchmen. I mean, that's, if you haven't seen that movie, the graphic comic was, I think, better, but the movie,
I think the comics are almost always better.
Yeah. But the movie was really good too, because that's what it was. It was like, hey, we need to have world peace, so I pretend there's an alien invasion, and and I'm willing to do it. And if it kills a whole bunch of people, well, you know, you got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet type of, you know, attitude. I'm not on board with that. That's just me personally. So.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that's a good spot right there.
All right. It's an hour and a half. Are you loading Megs? Are you doing Meg shit right now?
Oh,
seriously, in the middle. Oh, you're doing okay. Gotcha. All right, doing a little lock.
Just unlocking all of the information we've been talking about.
Ooh, that was so corny. It definitely wasn't planned. All right. Hey, Redbeard. I think that kind of concludes it. I think we kind of covered the last 10 episodes, or last 9 episodes, this being the 10th. What am I forgetting? What do you want to throw in there that I may have left out?
I think we've kind of hit the best we can on most of the stuff. Again, we actually talked about some very broad subjects, so I think we did about as good as we can. We got all of our housekeeping done. We are going to have links in the description, so you guys will be able to access both Spotify, and you'll be able to check out that YouTube page. Again, Alex over at History Legends does fantastic work as it pertains to his graphics, his information, and being able to explain what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. So you guys might be able to find that extremely informative. Beyond that, I think
you're saying you already sent me those links.
I sent you the History Legend one. I will send you over the Spotify one.
Okay. Well, I should be able to pull that too. But,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But if you're going to send it, just send both of them, and then I'll just dump them in, because once we're done,
I did send the History Legends one over.
Okay. Perfect. So, well, then I think on that note, sir, before you take us out, I just want to do one last final plug. So we're at, next episode is episode 20. So we've got 19 of these under our belts. I think we've been getting better. I'm just here to tell you, though, for me, this has been a ton of fun. For all the people who leave I mean, it ranges everything from the guests that we've been, able to bring on. And I hope you guys appreciate that and who they are and what they have to say. But, they are their own individuals, and, you are your own person as well, so, and you're still free. So, make up your own minds, doing your own research. But I'm just really thankful for everybody who's helped us, joined us, watched, listened, made comments, it's been fun. And, now we're getting ready to do the next 10. So, I mean, that's kind of my closer right there, is like, it's been a lot of fun, and I want to do at least another more 10, we'll see, unless somebody starts giving us 30. Oh, and we did get a troll, and we had a troll. We should have mentioned that in this last 10 episodes, we had our very first troll. So that was kind of cool too. Because both Jeremy and I thought it was going to happen way earlier, but it did happen in this last 10 episodes.
And you know what? Thank you to the troll. I mean, you're every bit as, look, we encourage people to be interactive, and that was a form of interaction. So, and
that person's entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yep.
You're absolutely right, sir.
Yeah, no, I basically mirror what Mark says. We really appreciate everybody coming in and participating and leaving your comments and liking and subscribing to us. And we just, like we say all the time, we just try and aim to do better every single time. And we've had people that have commented and we're like, hey, jump on here. And we've gotten some pretty freaking cool people. So, it's been a good ride. I wasn't sure even in the beginning what to expect with all this, but it's been a good time. So
rock and roll, baby. Rock and roll. All right. If you got nothing else to add, then why don't you take us on out, brother, man?
All right. So as you all know, those of you that have been around for a while, look, the flame of liberty shall not and will not ever be extinguished so long as there are good people willing to defend and support it. So that means each and every one of you, as Mark has mentioned, you are the resistance.
So long as there are good people willing and able to defend it. Amen. Right on.
So that being said, we will see you in the next one.
Yeah. Well, last. So Tuesday, again, just last little final plug. So the next episode is, 27. So I think it's Tuesday. The 1st is the live stream training course. And then Thursday, the 3rd, if my dates are right, but you're smart. You can look it up.
Yep.
It's Tuesday, first week of August, and then Thursday we'll be back here on Mission Critical. But we are doing that live stream, the part 3, the final episode of Go Bags, Gear, and Getting There. So hopefully we'll see you guys on Tuesday. If not, we'll see you next week, next Thursday. All right, everybody.
Thanks again.
You got it. Be good. And we are out.